Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be talking about a few different types of runs that you can incorporate into your training if you don't already. And you're also going to learn more about why we do these specific runs. You can't just do the same run every single day and expect to get good over a long period of time. Obviously, when you first start off, doing anything will help you out. But once you start to set some goals and you get more experienced, it actually helps a lot to have a bit more structure and different types of runs throughout a week. The first type of run we're going to talk about is the easy run. The easy run will make up majority of your training, and it's the type of run that people are most familiar with. The reason why we should do it is to build our aerobic base. Running is an aerobic sport. Even the shortest of distances like the 800 meters is still 70% aerobic, and therefore it matters to have that huge aerobic base in order to perform better. Another good thing is that it builds our time on feet and it enables us to run longer. If we were to run 4 kilometers fast, you won't get as much time on your feet as if you were to take it slow. Going slow has a lot of benefits as well because there's a lot of physiological adaptations that can be made in that intensity. And those benefits include plasma volume, which will allow more blood to flow throughout the body, which is ultimately going to help with oxygen transport. Your stroke volume will be higher, meaning more blood is pumped with each beat, and therefore your heart doesn't have to pump as fast, so your heart rate will decrease over time as you get fitter, as we know. You'll also enhance the process of capillarization, which just means more blood vessels near your muscles, and therefore there's more oxygen able to transport to the muscles from different areas, because you'll be covering more surface area around the muscle with more blood capillaries. And there's definitely way more reasons, but the last thing I'll talk about in this video is mitochondrial biogenesis, which just means there's more mitochondrial density. We all know mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's going to help produce us more energy in order to be able to run further. The more mitochondria you have, the more advantageous it is for the runner. So you'll be producing more of that if you run slow and do a lot of easy runs. And now we're going to be moving on to interval training. Interval training is the other end of the spectrum. We're running super quick and we're trying to build our speed up. The first thing we'll talk about is the biomechanical benefit. When you're running quick, you're forced to run with good form. I don't know a single person that jogs with bad form that picks up the pace and still has that terrible form. Everyone to an extent has to have a little bit of better form because you are traveling at a quicker speed, and without that technique you're not going to get there. And your technique will improve over time. So we're trying to build the capacity to run with better form by doing more interval training. The other benefits include power and speed, which will obviously help, especially with shorter distances like 5k, 10k. But even when we're talking about a marathon, you have to be able to run a certain 5k time to be able to unlock a certain 10k time to unlock a half marathon time, which will unlock that marathon potential. So it all comes down to speed at the end of the day, and we lose speed before we lose our aerobic fitness in the long term and also the short term, which we'll talk about later. But that's why you want to work on speed while you can, while you are able to run quick. But don't let age discourage you at all. No matter what age you are, you can benefit from speed training, and you just have to do it in a safe manner and liaise with the coach. Now the final thing is improved VO2 max. We all know that VO2 max is half determined by genetics, so you're born with a certain VO2 max value, but the other half of VO2 max you can actually still train. So there is the potential to increase it a little bit, and the way to increase it is by doing a lot of interval training. Having a higher VO2 max will especially help you out with stuff like 3k and 5k races, but it can still definitely contribute to longer races as well, and also shorter races. It's something that you don't want to neglect, and there is still a benefit to doing VO2 max sessions. Moving swiftly onwards, we're talking about tempo and threshold runs. This essentially will help you run faster for a longer time. So we've talked about easy runs and interval runs so far, and we're sitting at that nice sweet spot in the middle of that, and there's a lot of gains to be made in that area. A lot of people know of the 80-20 rule where you run 80% of your mileage slow and 20% of your mileage fast, but that's kind of an outdated way of thinking because a lot of elite runners nowadays are doing 60% of their mileage easy, 35% of their mileage at threshold, and 5% at faster VO2 max type of effort. But even then, you should never conform to social norms and do 80-20 or the 60-35 and 5 that I talked about. I think it's super individual, but the benefit of tempo and threshold runs is you're basically running at the highest level of aerobic activity that you can, and therefore you're not actually cooking yourself too much, but you're also not working at a slow enough intensity that you're not developing that good speed. So like I said, it's a great way to be able to run faster for longer, and usually the people that win races are the ones that are the most fresh with 1 kilometer to go, 400 meters to go, 200 meters to go. The person that's most fresh is able to access the speed that they've developed in their speed training and therefore can win the race. Most people on the planet can run super quick if they're forced to run quick, but it's about how fresh you are, whether you can access that speed or not. That's the best way to put it, and I made a whole video on lactate threshold functional training, and I'm gonna make more specific videos on it too. So that's all I'll cover in this video, but go check out some of my other videos if you want more information. Moving on, we have another type of run that I absolutely love, which is the long run. There's a lot of different types of long runs, but the most basic two types of long runs will be your long run workout and your zone 2 easy long run. The benefit of long runs is that you build your mental strength because you're running for a longer amount of time, and a lot of the times, even if you're running slower, the time that you spend running might be longer than your race duration, especially when we're talking about a half marathon, 10k or 5k. So therefore, you're getting used to being in a running state for a longer amount of time than what you'll be racing. That's where the mental benefit comes in. It's also where the huge aerobic gains are made, but you have to watch out with the long run because I see a lot of new runners doing really long runs when they're not running that much in a week. You actually don't want your long run to be too much of a portion of your weekly mileage. As a general rule of thumb, I'd say you want the long run to sit anywhere between 20 to 35% of your weekly volume. As soon as you start doing more than that, you're kind of getting to a stage where the long run's taking up like half or more of your weekly mileage, and that's a lot of load in one single day over the course of a week. So it's totally fine to start with all runs the same in the week, and as you get more experience and you build up that mileage and the distance per run, you can start having one run that's a little bit longer. So don't go straight into doing super long runs. I think it's still better to focus on frequency if you're first starting off. Another benefit if you do the long runs at zone 2 at a really chill pace is that you're going to be using both fat and carbs as a fuel source, and your body will slowly work out what the most efficient way to burn through the two sources are. It's a different story when we're doing the long runs super fast all the time, because that will just go straight into burning your carbs as a fuel source. So that's why it's good to play around with doing some easy long runs and also a few where you have faster efforts in the later part of the run. So don't always do one type of run. You might even have some runs where you do the whole thing where you get rolling and just run pretty quick for a long amount of time. But yeah, there's a lot of different types of long runs, and I might make a whole video on that as well. Now the final type of run that I'll talk about in this video is recovery runs. This is also known as active recovery, and it's a good way to promote blood flow throughout the body in order to speed up recovery. The more blood flow there is to the area of strain, you will get more recovery benefits. So going out for walks, going out for a super slow run where you don't even think about how fast you're going, you might even not take a watch. It's just a great way to feel better after a hard day like a long run or an interval session or a long tempo session. And because of this, you'll probably feel better in the next coming days when you go back to normal training. Now a lot of this might be common sense, and I want to give a bit more value than just that, so we're going to talk about a few more things. So how you structure your training in a week and where you place your runs and all that sort of stuff will be determined by a few things. We're talking time availability, how much time you have in a week to allocate towards your running. Your goals will determine a factor as well, how ambitious they are, what you're training for, and that sort of stuff. We also have training age, and that's just how long you've been training for. That might determine when you put certain runs in a week, or if you even do those types of runs in the first place. Cross training is another huge factor. You can get a lot of aerobic benefits from cross training, which doesn't require you to pound the legs all the time. But that being said, it is necessary to pound your legs a little bit with running. Without that, you're not going to get that increased bone density. If you don't use it, you lose it. So if you're not triggering that response in your body where your bones need to be more dense by running, you will lose that bone density. So having a little bit is good, but also cross training a little bit will allow you to get that extra aerobic benefit as well. But that just might mean that you need to do one less easy run in a week, and you might even increase the tempo session so that it's more specific to what you're training for. And finally, we have recovery. Are you good at recovery, or are you really crap at it? If you do recover more, you can train more and therefore perform better. But if you're not recovering properly, then you can't train as much, and therefore you have to hold back in the training. You might not be able to handle having an interval session and a tempo session and a long run in a week, so you might have to cut down on one of them. All that sort of stuff can factor in, and there's plenty more factors that I haven't talked about, but those 5 are what come into mind when I first think about how to structure your training. I made a whole video recently on where exactly to put training in a week, so go check that out for more details. But now we're going to move on to fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers. So you probably heard about this in biology or PE in high school or something like that, but there are different types of fibers, and we can switch between the two depending on what sort of training we do. But that actually means you have to be really smart about where you put the training. I feel like the best way to describe it is that you lose speed quicker than you lose endurance. So you need to be smart about when you do speed, but with endurance you can kind of do it all the time and whenever you want, because it takes a bit longer to lose your aerobic fitness. But your fast twitch fibers have a huge contribution to the anaerobic energy system, and that can be developed quickly. The adaptation for the fast twitch fibers are pretty quick, so I would put the speed training closer to your race day because you want to sharpen up really quick, and as you peak in that sharpening up phase, that's when you want to race. But if you're doing a lot of speed training in your base building phase, you're actually doing a lot of intensity unnecessarily. So this is called periodization. You have to be smart about when you do specific types of work. Split up the season into a seasonal arc. Have like a base building phase, and you might even do the highest mileage during base building, but then you might lower that mileage so that you feel a bit more fresher and you built that base, and now you can do a bit more specific speed work. And with the decreased mileage, you're going to feel a lot more fresher and you can get that specific work in before you go into a race. Now this is also another video that I want to make in the future, but I'll quickly touch on zone 2 running. I think social media influencers have hugely overhyped zone 2 running.
The problem I have with the whole easy running trend is that it sets the bar extremely low for social media content. Like all of a sudden you can just have random Muppets who've done 3 weeks of running, make a couple of videos a week saying run slow to run fast, do your easy runs easy, save the faster stuff for race day. They can rack up tens of thousands of followers as a running page, get paid to promote random products. All of a sudden they've got to start thinking about other things to talk about, so they start making up other pieces of running advice. Easy running is a staple of training whether you like it or not. Just parroting that over and over again in many different ways, really useful to people. So yeah, no hate for easy running, it is important, but if you're a lazy running content creator and you just spill zone 2 propaganda 3 times a week with your shirt off, then you can get in the bin.
And through this video so far, you've already learned the benefits of all the different types of running, so you shouldn't just be doing zone 2 running. There's no such thing as run slow to run fast. It's more run slow to be able to run further, and then you can do the specific training so that you can run faster for longer. So don't let any influencer that doesn't know what they're talking about tell you that slow running equals fast running, because it's slow running plus the specific training that gets you there. Now more importantly, a lot of people have their zones set with a Garmin watch that just looks at wrist heart rate, and the most important thing to remember is that Garmin even state on their website, and so do all the other watch brands, that the max heart rate is calculated by 220 minus your age. If you get 2 people with the same age, you're never going to have the same max heart rate between those 2 people. So you already know that that's not scientific. Your max heart rate is going to change from day to day as well, depending on your sleep, diet, and several other factors like external stress and all that sort of stuff. And so does your resting heart rate, so does your threshold pace, and all that sort of stuff. Every day is individual. You shouldn't be judging anything with one singular day, because you have to look at long-term trends to be able to see where you're going and where you're at. You might feel on top of the world one day, but you might feel crap the next day, and then you might feel okay the next day. But if you don't carry on getting that data point over a long period of time, you actually don't know where you're at out of those 3. You just had 3 really different days, and you might be somewhere in between that. Bit of a tangent there, but because of the fact that zones are calculated with 220 minus your age, and then they probably use some other algorithm to work out the rest of your zones, that just means that it's not very scientific, and your body doesn't even know the difference between 145 heart rate and 146 heart rate, so you shouldn't be stressing about going a couple beats over your zone 2, because your zone 2 might not even be right if you haven't done a proper test on your watch with a heart rate monitor on your chest, where they make you work at different increments of intensity, and then they correlate your heart rate to specific zones. But if you haven't done that test that Garmin makes you do, then you're actually just basing it off of non-scientific data, and therefore it's really not smart to just obsess over metrics. But I think people should use me as a little bit of an example as to how far I've gotten in running without actually obsessing over metrics. I've never owned a heart rate monitor, I've never owned a blood lactate meter, but I do a lot of my running on feel, and that's actually the most important. And as Matt Hangzo said, feel is the most important thing in running, because your body's super good at telling different stuff. You've obviously heard of homeostasis. Your body's always providing feedback on how it's feeling in terms of many different factors. Your blood sugar levels, temperature, hunger, thirst, all that can be recognized by the body, and it will give you signals like you'll feel hungry, you'll feel thirsty, you'll be craving certain stuff, you'll become sleepy. So listening to your body is by far the best way to run. So run at a pace that feels easy when you're doing your easy runs. Run at a tempo pace that feels like a tempo pace. That's about it for this video. I hope 1 or 2 of these tips were helpful, or hopefully a lot of it was helpful. Leave a comment what you found was most helpful, and let me know if I missed anything. Go watch some of my other videos, and yeah, enjoy your running, and I'll see you soon.